If there ever was a place that was meant for discovery, it's school. The books, the classes, they're all designed for discovery. But you know, the greatest discoveries are the ones that you make about yourself in the classroom of the heart. Whenever I begin a new school year, I'm filled with anticipation. My students are too. They wonder lots of things, like whether they'll get good grades or whether they'll be accepted. I teach in rural Minnesota, but you know, the kids here are the same as kids are everywhere. They're the same as you. They care about the same things. In my school, we have all types and characters. One student I'll never forget is Kent Soderman. He came into class that first day, mostly bald under his baseball cap, and no one wanted to talk about it. Yeah, have a seat. Hey, Brenda. You know, that was me with the donut waving at you this morning. Did you see me?
Oh, that was you, Mr. Dowd. You're much better looking without a donut in your face.
I'm sure. Stu, if that's the rest of your breakfast, you better swallow it before class.
Done, Frank? I'll go spit it out.
Good plan. Hi. Since discussion class doesn't work too well if everyone's a stranger, we spend the first couple days of class getting to know each other. I tell them that the more they find out, the better.
Well, that covers the basic statistics.
So, Brenda, now, tell me about the real you. The you we're all dying to know.
You have sleep cook in your eye.
Ooh, pretty spicy stuff, Brenda.
Well, do you have a boyfriend?
No.
Dad, my mom's here. When I graduate, I'm out of here. I mean, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life cleaning fish.
Well, I mean, I know what you're saying, but I don't know. I think I'd really miss my friends and my folks. I have a really large family.
Yeah? Well, whatever.
So the Twins your favorite team?
Yeah. I got this one in a game last year. Of course, doesn't fit as well as it used to. So what kind of qualities do you look for in a guy?
Okay, what's your favorite kind of music? Like, I don't already know.
Opera.
Opera? Opera. Alrighty.
What are you doing after the game tonight, Daddy?
Mr. Dowd!
Once the interviews are over, I can't wait for the next day to hear what they have to say about each other.
And so, for Brenda, and these are her own words, life is a ripe plum waiting to be plucked and thrown at the first jerk that hassles you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Brenda Staley story. The woman, the legend.
Thanks, Wes. Hey, you know, the Enquirer's always looking for a few good men. Who haven't we heard from or about? Troy, who is your partner?
My partner was Kent Soderman. He's a senior and he plays the saxophone. Lives out near South Long Lake. His dad's a welder and his favorite team is the Twins. Oh, and his sister was homecoming queen 2 years ago.
Well, thanks, Troy. How about anybody else? Anybody else have a question to ask Kent? Well, Kent, I have a question for you. I can't help but notice that you don't have much hair.
You're very perceptive, Mr. Dowd.
Now, I know why you don't have much hair, Kent, but some of the rest of the people might not. Would you mind telling the class what's happened to your hair?
No. I don't mind. Well, I have what's called an ependymoma. It's a brain tumor, and sometimes they treat it with chemotherapy and radiation. It makes your hair fall out, even your eyebrows.
Do you ever get sick from the radiation?
Some days it's not so good, but I think it's something you just sort of get used to.
Kent, how have your parents been handling all this?
Well, I know it's been tough for them. I mean, I've come home in the middle of the day and found my mom crying. And I know it's been hard for my dad because he's always taken a lot of pride in been able to look out after us. This is just something he can't.
You know, I think it's interesting that, here's something that Kent's been, living with for a number of years. And yet many of us, we didn't know anything about it. Because we don't know what to say or, we don't know how to say it, sometimes we don't say anything at all. I just think that we all feel better because, Kent's shared with us what's going on in his life. Kent, would you mind if anybody else has a question to ask you?
No.
Anybody else have a question for Kent?
How long have you had it?
5 years. The doctors say if you make it this long, you have a real good chance, so.
Have you ever wondered, why me?
Sometimes at the hospital, I've seen little kids. And they've been sick for a long time, some of them for years. And they're struggling to hold on to life, just to have a normal moment. I thank God for the blessings I've had. I've been elk hunting in Colorado. I have a great home, a great dog. I don't question God. I'm thankful to him.
Have you ever worried about dying?
No, I don't think about dying. I think about living. I'm looking forward to graduation just like the rest of you. This is happening to me like it's supposed to one day. Maybe maybe even playing for the Twins. I'm not half bad at first base.
Would you mind if I gave you a hug?
I'd like that very much.
Yeah, that really happened. And in that moment, I realized that we had learned more about ourselves than we had about Kent.
Mr. Dowd. Mr. Dowd.
Hi, Jerry. How's the newspaper business?
Good. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I wondered if I could get some stuff from you for an article.
Get some stuff?
Yeah, you know, like an interview on you being National Teacher of the Year and everything.
Oh, bad. Jerry, don't you think everybody's getting kind of tired of hearing about all that?
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, everyone in the paper really wanted to see more coverage. We heard you had a picture of you with the president.
Of course. News travels fast. I haven't even had a chance to open it yet. I want to take it home and show it to my wife first. Why don't you stop by in the morning and I'll let you see it then?
Oh, great. Maybe we could do the interview then.
Don't you think the picture's enough?
Oh, well, actually, Mr. Dowd, to be honest with you, we need to fill some space.
Oh, sure. Well, why don't you come by tomorrow, Jerry, and you can take a look then?
Great. Thanks, Mr. Dowd. You know, Mr. Dowd, it really is something. I mean, it's not every day you get to go to the White House to see the president. We're, you know, lucky to have the Teacher of the Year in our school.
Thanks, Jerry. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
National Teacher of the Year. I always get embarrassed when I'm introduced as Teacher of the Year. I remember when I was chosen as National Teacher of the Year in 1986, a reporter from the USA Today phoned me, a gentleman by the name of Steve Marshall, and he said, Mr. Dowd, he said, what does it feel like to have been chosen as the best teacher in America? Now, who wouldn't like to think that you're the best? You know, the best teacher, the best student, the best athlete, you know, the best musician in all of America. And my head started to get really big. And then all of a sudden, the reality of what he said hit me. And I said, Mr. Marshall, sir, you have to stop right there, because in no way does being chosen Teacher of the Year mean I'm the best teacher anywhere. Certainly not in America. With 2.5 million public school teachers. Not in Minnesota, not even in Brainerd, Minnesota, where I teach. Hopefully I'm the best teacher in my classroom. And sometimes I'm not even so sure about that. But the whole idea behind that program isn't to pick the best teacher, because that would be impossible. But it's to pick somebody to speak on behalf of all teachers. So I really don't have any claim to fame. If I had any claim to fame at all, and kids that had me my first couple of years as a teacher will get a, you know, they can testify to this. I used to weigh 327 pounds. I mean, I was fat. I mean, my fat had fat, you know. But, you know, when I was really heavy, I really suffered from a low self-esteem. I didn't like myself fat. You know, I was the kid I never dated in high school. I was always the kid in high school that took the tickets at the dance. You know, the one that cleaned up afterwards. I'd go to the movie theater, you know, and I'd sit there and I'd order a tub of buttered popcorn, And I'd pay for 10 or 12 or 15 extra squirts of butter on it, you know, and I'd have 7 or 8 Snicker bars and a tall Coke, and I'd sit there, and then I'd watch my classmates come in, my peers, boyfriend, girlfriend. I'd watch them sit down in front of me. The girl must have developed a little kink in her neck or something, you know, because all of a sudden there was the guy's hand over there, kind of tenderly massaging her neck, and I'd sit there with the butter dripping off my chin, thinking, oh boy, I sure wish I had a girlfriend too, you know. And I'd go home and have 10 or 12 scoops of butter brickle, you know. Oh, one of the worst experiences I ever had in school was in gym class. Here I was in 6th grade, and I liked 6th grade, and I didn't want to leave Little Lincoln Elementary and go all the way across town to the big junior, senior high school with grades 7 through 12 all in the same building and a vocational school attached besides. I knew that I had to have a locker. In elementary, you just went to one room, but in 7th grade, you had to have a locker. And I had to have 7 different classes, 7 different teachers. I had to remember my combination. And one of the classes that I had to take was gym class. I'll tell you this, I don't like to run. The only time I run is if I'm being chased. But I heard that in 7th grade gym class, you just, you know, like in elementary, you go outside and you wear whatever it is that you wore to school for recess when I was in school. But in 7th grade, you have to change into gym clothes. You have to undress. You have to get naked. All my life, my mom had said, Guy, hold your stomach in. And I'd become really good at holding it in. And all of a sudden, I was going to have to take gym class. And everything I'd been holding in was going to be on MTV for the whole world to see. I was a nervous wreck about I remember lying awake at night during the summer between 6th and 7th grade thinking, oh no, I got to take gym class, I got to take gym class. And finally, a note came home from the school. If you have a son in 7th grade gym class, this is what he's going to need. Staples Cardinals, red and white, dynamite. Onward, Cardinals, to victory. We're behind you in this fray. Do your best and we'll do the rest by cheering all the way. Yay, team fight. Gonna need a pair of white gym shoes, white gym socks, red gym shorts, that other thing, and a white t-shirt. Well, we didn't have any of those things, so Mom went to Batcher's department store and bought those things for me. Finally, that long-dreaded first day of gym class came. And to make matters even worse, I had a gym teacher who had just gone back into teaching after finishing 20 years in the Marines as a drill instructor. And he'd heard about 7th graders, and by golly, we weren't going to get the best of him. He came into class that first day. He says, all right, listen up. I am going to issue you a lock. I am going to give you the combination to your lock. Should you forget the combination to your lock, I'm going to write it across your forehead in magic markers. Understood? Guess who forgot the combination to his lock? So I could change in your gym clothes on the double. Well, here, I didn't need to go run any laps. The sweat was already just pouring out of me. I mean, I'm sweating rivers. So here I am reaching in my bag, taking out my shoes and my shorts and my socks and my shirt. And that other thing. I'd never seen one of those before. It said bike on the box. I took it out and looked at it, didn't look anything like a bike. Looked more like a slingshot. this thing. I was too embarrassed to look over at Steve and see how he was putting his on. So you know what I did? I did something that I think that was only logical to do. I decided to tie in to lessons that I'd learned in the past. Well, you know, Guy, the tags on things always go in the back. How do you girls know about that? Well, I no more than had it on. I knew something was wrong. So now I'm looking over at Steve, see how he's putting his on. Oh, that's how it goes. Well, I was too embarrassed to take it all the way off and call even more attention to myself. So I thought, well, maybe I could just twist it around. So here I am trying to twist it around, you know, and all of a sudden my gym teacher sees me. Old drill sergeant, you know. Look at this. Look at this, everybody. He doesn't even know how to put on a jock strap. And everybody looked. And everybody laughed. And somehow or other, I made it through that hour of gym class. About 2 laps behind, and I made it back to I was the last one back into the locker room, and I was sick, and I had to go home sick, and I missed the next 2 weeks of school sick, and I had gym class on Tuesdays and Thursdays and every other Friday, and I was sick an awful lot on Tuesdays and Thursdays and every other Friday, and I was flunking all my classes. And I hated school. I hated school. I thought, well, maybe I can quit. What did I learn in school? I learned I was fat. I learned my artwork wasn't good enough for the bulletin board. I learned that I came from a lower class family. I learned, and you know, all of us have learned something about ourselves. I'll never forget the first year of school that I'm teaching. And I'm sitting in my room, I'm correcting papers. I hope to get done in time to go to the football game that night and go out to Taco Town and have some spaghetti and chicken and then get to the football game, you know. And I look up and there in the doorway stands number 85. He's got his jersey on. I look over at him, I say, hey, what are you still doing here? He says, well, I had to pick up some books. I kind of like to be the first one to get down into the locker room and get dressed for the game. Big game tonight, huh? He says, yeah. He says, it could decide the conference championship. I looked at him, I said, well, are we going to beat them? He says, we're going to kill them. I says, good. And he kind of stood there and he shifted his weight back and forth. And he says, you know, Mr. Dowd, he says, tonight, since it's the last home game of the year, you know, it's parents' night. And at halftime, they have all the senior football players go stand out on the 50-yard line, and they have all their parents come out and stand behind them. I don't know if you know this or not, you know, but, you know, my folks are divorced. And my dad lives in California, and my mom, well, she's out of town. And the coach said that if our parents couldn't be here tonight, that we should ask somebody that we respect. Well, I was going to ask you sooner, but hey, if you're not going to be at the football game tonight, that's okay. And I looked at him and I said, are you asking me to stand up with you at halftime? He says, if you're not going to be at the football game, that's okay. I said, well, I am going to be at the football game, and I would be very honored to stand up with you at halftime. Then he sat down on the edge of a desk. He says, you know, I haven't gotten into a game yet this year. I said, well, I'm sure you'll get in tonight. He says, I sure hope so. So I went to the game that night, and I sat up there in the stands, and I watched number 80. I went out and stood behind him at halftime. And the third quarter started, number 85 still hadn't made it into the game. We had a 20-some point lead. Now, hey, I'm not questioning anybody's coaching decisions. I understand how difficult it is to make those decisions as a coach. But by the middle of the third quarter, I was on my feet. Put number 85 into the game! And the game ended. Number 85 didn't make it into the game. And we won by a considerable margin. What did he learn in school? He learned that somebody didn't trust him enough to put him in the game. Whenever I leave my home in central Minnesota and have to travel down to Minneapolis, I pass a sign on the interstate that says Lake Maria State Park. And I can't help but see that sign and not remember the story of a girl named Jill Sorensen. It was the headline of the Minneapolis paper. Jill Sorensen was a 17-year-old junior girl, captain of the cheerleading team, straight-A student in Maple Lake High School, Maple Lake, Minnesota. But her boyfriend told her, and I ask you to handle this with all maturity, but her boyfriend told her, he said, you know, Jill, your butt's too big. And so Jill started to diet. She started to drink the little syrup to make herself regurgitate. And she started taking the laxatives. And whenever she did eat, after she'd finish eating, she'd get up and she'd go to the bathroom and make herself vomit. And she got down to 81 pounds. Before they finally confronted her and they sent her to treatment, and she was only there for a short time and she wasn't complying. She'd eat and then she'd go make herself regurgitate. And so they sent her home and they said, you come back when you decide you want to get well. And it was a decision that she never made. She went home and she drove the family car out to Lake Maria State Park. And she recorded a message on the cassette player. And then she took 2 gallons of gasoline out of the trunk. And she poured them over herself. And she set herself on fire. And of those kids that come into my classroom, 1 out of every 10 of them come from a chemically dependent home. 1 out of every 13 has been physically or sexually abused. Every 70 seconds in this country, a teenager attempts suicide. Every 90 minutes, they succeed. Every 30 seconds, an adolescent girl becomes pregnant. And you know, I read a poll recently of kindergartners and how many of them, over 90-some%, feel good about who they are. And then I read a poll of seniors graduating from high school, and a very small percentage feel good about who they are. What happens between kindergarten and the time that you're a senior? What is it that creeps in that says, I'm no good, you're no good? It's all these things that I've been talking about. And so a lot of us don't feel good about who we are. So you know what we do? We try things to make us feel good. We try alcohol, we try drugs, we try sexual relationships, we try accumulating possessions, and we end up feeling empty, and we end up feeling a void in our lives. And you know, if it hadn't been for caring teachers who reached out to me and showed me that I had some potential, I probably just would have been another one of the many dropout statistics. I got so involved in school, my grades went from the bottom to the top. I ran for student council every year, never got elected. But my principal always appointed me member at large. I never realized the significance of it at that time. And when I was a senior, I was elected president of the Future Teachers of America Club. And in Little Staples High School, with just about 125 kids in each grade, we had about 90 students, grades 10 through 12, in Future Teachers of America. And I remember thinking, boy, if I could be a teacher like Mr. Card, if I could be a teacher like Mrs. Roberts, like Mrs. Morey, like Mrs. Miller, like Mr. Kopka, if I could be a teacher. And on April 14th, 1986, I had the unbelievable honor of being invited into the Oval Office to meet the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, on behalf of all of America's teachers. If you were in my class, at the end of 12 weeks, I'd come in. Last day, say, I've told you that I love you. At first, that makes me really suspect, especially with the hockey players, you know. But by the end of the 12 weeks, they realized, I hope, that I'm sincere. And I say, you know, you're going to walk out those doors, and I'm never going to see some of you again. But you know, I've invested part of myself in you. And you've shared part of yourself with me, and we've shared with each other. And in a real sense, none of us can ever be the same again. And so I just can't let you walk out those doors without saying something special. You know, this is very personal on my part, but I'd like to sing you a song that's my wish for your life. And the name of the song, and my wish for you, is Forever Young. May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. Hey, that's the golden rule. May you build a ladder to the stars and climb on every rung. May you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young. May your hands always be busy. May your feet always be swift. May you have that firm foundation when the winds of change shift. May your heart always be joyful. May your song always be sung. May you stay forever young.
Some people call it graduation. I call it commencement. It's a beginning where you take the discoveries that you've made and you begin to build your life on them. Some things change. Some things never change. Some lessons are forgotten, and some lessons are never forgotten and influence you for the rest of your life.
Kent Sutton.
We miss Kent. He died several months after graduation. I'm sure we'll never forget the lessons that we learned from him. But it's a lesson that we can all learn. Self-worth isn't found by looking within. Look beyond yourself and discover the value of others.